Hello, everyone. We will be doing day 2 word problem examples. So we'll be on page 5. We are in packet number 4, Pythagorean theorem. We'll be doing 4 word problems, and then you guys will get started on the homework, which will be page 6. So we're going to jump right into it. It says, for some of the examples below, it may be helpful to draw a picture. Round to the nearest tenth on all solutions if necessary. Okay, so we are going to round to the nearest tenth. We need to. Looking at the first word problem, and we will draw a picture because it does help. It says a rectangular pool. So right away, I'm going to draw a rectangle. At Andy's gym measures 25 meters by 50 meters. Okay. I know that 25 is bigger than 50, so I can tell which side would be 25 and which side would be 50. So the smaller side would be 25 meters, and then the larger side of the rectangle would be 50 meters. Okay. And the question asks, how many meters would Andy need to swim in order to swim diagonally across the pool? Okay, so if Andy is swimming diagonally, that means he is swimming from one corner to the diagonal corner. Kind of thinking like a slanted diagonal line. Okay. By swimming diagonally across the pool, I have made a right triangle, and I want to know how long this line is. Okay. So I have made a right triangle right here. Okay. I'm going to zoom in on this problem while we're working on it. Okay. And we can apply the Pythagorean theorem because we have a right triangle and we know two sides. So here is my right angle in the corner of this triangle. Once I split the rectangle in half, I'm going to draw an arrow to the hypotenuse, which is opposite side, and label that side C. We don't know side C. Okay. I'm going to label my legs as A and B. Remember, it does not matter which side you label it. And then I'm going to start by writing the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm going to fill in what I know. So we have A squared, so 25 squared, plus 50 squared. And I'm looking for C squared because I don't know how long that diagonal line is yet. When I use my calculator, encourage you to use the calculator, especially on bigger squares. We have 625 plus 2,500 equals C squared. When I add A squared and B squared together, I get 3,125 equals C squared. The opposite of squaring a number is taking the square root, and we want to know what C is by itself. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so I'm going to take the square root of 3,125 as well as the square root of C squared. And when I solve, I would know that C, the diagonal across the pool, is 55.9 meters. Okay. So if Andy were to swim diagonal across the pool, he would have to swim 55.9 meters. Looking at number 8, pause this video anytime you guys need, if you need another minute to write things down. But as we look at number 8, we're going to draw another picture because the problem says a pole vaulter rested a 17-foot pole against a wall. Okay, so we have a wall. Here's my wall. Okay. And we have a pole that's 17 feet long. Okay. If the top of the pole, so this top point right here, hit the wall at 14 feet above the ground, okay, so our wall and our pole met at 14 feet off the ground, how far from the wall is the bottom of the pole? So we can create a right triangle. This is the ground, and then we have our wall and our pole. Okay, so this is our pole. And this is our wall. Okay. It's nice to label stuff so that when you're talking about a word problem, you know what you're looking at in the picture, since we didn't physically draw a wall or a pole, right? So I have a right triangle now. Okay. Right here is a right triangle. Okay. And when I draw opposite of the right triangle, it's my hypotenuse. So I know that 17 is side C. Okay. Using the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Get in the habit of writing it to help you solve your problems. We can solve for the missing side. I'm going to call what we know A, which means we're looking for B. We're looking for the other leg. When I fill in what I know that A is 14, and then I square it. I don't know B, but I do know that the hypotenuse C is 17. Okay. Once I square 14, I get 196. I'm looking for B squared still, but whatever that is going to equal 289. I need to solve for B, and in order to solve for B, I need to isolate it. So I need to take away 196 from both sides, because whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. It cancels out, and I am left with B squared equals 93. We almost solved for B, but I need B by itself. Right now I have B squared. The inverse is taking the square root, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. When I take the square root, I get that it is 9.6 feet. That means that the distance from the wall to the bottom of the pole is 9.6 feet. Okay. Number 9, 2 more examples. Okay. The pictures are drawn for us. Okay. It says, what is the area of the largest square? Okay. So we know 2 of the squares, and we want to look for the third square. I can figure out the area. Okay. If you add together the area of the 2 smaller squares, it will equal the area of the largest square. Okay. These numbers, 36 and 64, are already squared for you. Okay, that's why it says unit squared. So the area of this square is 36, and I could find out what a side length is if I took the square root. Okay, so I can figure out right away that this side length, one of the legs, is 6, and I can do the same thing for 64. Okay, this is the area, so it's already squared. So if I take the square root of 64, which is 8, then I also already know this length in my triangle. Okay, my triangle is here in the middle. Okay. So we can solve for C to figure out the area, or we can add together the smaller squares. These numbers are already squared. So when we use Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. These numbers are already squared for us. Okay. So 6 squared is 36. I have both of my legs, A and B. I can fill in 36 and 64. Okay. Because if I were to fill in just the side lengths, I would have 6 squared, which is 36, and 8 squared, which is 64. Okay. So we can solve for the area as well as the side length by doing Pythagorean theorem. Okay. 36 plus 64 is 100. And that gives us c squared. So if we first find c, the side length, or I'm sorry, the hypotenuse, okay, I would take the square root of both sides to find out that c is 10. Our hypotenuse is 10. Okay. We know that area is length times width. We've known that for forever. Okay. So a square, all sides are equal. So if this side is 10, then this side of the square is 10, this side of the square is 10, all of the sides are 10. Okay. So in order to find length times width, I would take one side length times the other. And I would find out that my area is 100 units squared. Solving by Pythagorean theorem, you would get 100 units squared. You can also add together from the beginning these two side lengths to get 100 right away. Because 36 plus 64 gives you 100. The last example. Pause the video if you didn't get the notes from the last problem. If the area of square 1 is 25 units squared, and the area of square 2 is 16 units squared, what is the perimeter of square 3? Remember, perimeter means distance around. I like to think of it as a fence in the backyard. The perimeter would be the distance all the way around, all 4 sides. So first we need to know what one side is to be able to find out what the perimeter is of the square. Okay. I know that this side length right here is 5, because if I take the square root of 25, I get 5. I know, since this is 16 units squared, that if I take the square root of 16, that this side would be 4. Okay. I have side C. I have the hypotenuse opposite of the right angle. I have side A. So what is side B? We can solve for it by applying the Pythagorean theorem. They already squared it for us. So we have A squared is 16. We're looking for B. And then they already squared it for the area. So then we have 25. To solve this problem, I need to isolate B. So I need to take 16 from both sides, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And I get that B squared is 9. To find a side length, I need to take the square root of both sides. And B equals 3. So that means that side B, our missing length, is 3. In a square, all sides are equal. So every side of this square is 3. So I need to add up my perimeter. Okay. If I take 3 times 4, because there are 4 sides to a square, I would get that the perimeter is 12 units. Your other option is to add up the sides. You would get the same answer. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 would also give you 12 units. That is the end of the notes. Your homework is page 6, and I'm going to get you started on it. Okay. You need to find the missing side of each triangle and round answers to the nearest 10th, just like the notes. Match the question number with the answers below. Color the picture accordingly. Okay. Now, not all of them are going to be solving for C. Some of them you will solve for legs and not the hypotenuse. So you need to pay close attention to what the problem is asking you to solve for when you're labeling your triangles. Number 1 gives us both legs, and we are solving for the hypotenuse. Okay. So I have side A and side B. I'm looking for side C. Solve using the Pythagorean theorem. Okay. Number 3 is a good example of not always solving for C. Here's my right angle. So if I draw my arrow opposite to my hypotenuse, my largest side, that is side C. This time I am solving for side A. Okay. Can still do that having 2 sides using Pythagorean theorem. Okay. Number 9, I'm going to go ahead and draw with you, okay? Because it talks about direction, north, south, east, and west. So we need to think about it on a compass. Okay. So if we have our compass, we have north, east, south, and west. It's a W. Okay. And it says Kate biked 9 miles north. So north is directly up on the paper. And then 4 miles west. So if we look at our compass, the 4 goes this way. Okay. And it says, how far is Kate from her starting point? So we're going to make a triangle, okay, by connecting our starting point with our end point. You can see that it's a right triangle, and we are going to need to solve for C. Okay. You will draw pictures for all of the problems by reading the directions. Okay. And I would encourage you to start every problem writing the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, before solving, and then fill in what you know to solve. Page 7 is the coloring activity that goes with this assignment. You do not have to turn in the coloring activity. That's just for fun. Okay. If you do want to color it, you are more than welcome to. Okay. But we are looking that you just do page 6 so that you practice those problems for Pythagorean theorem. If you have any questions, please reach out to Mrs. Friesman or myself, and we will see you in class tomorrow.